right, guys, welcome back to the Attachment Point News Roundtable. This is our follow-up episode. This is the first. I don't know if we've ever done a follow-up episode. This is also like a penance or a lesson, maybe. I've messed up your last name so many times, Kyle. I had to have you back just to try to correct it. I apologize, sir. How are you?
Good. Nakatsuji. That's it then, right? We're done. That's the
Nakatsuji. Yeah,
follow-up.
that's a wrap. Yeah. I can give you this half an hour back.
That's
Um,
funny.
Yeah, not to be too nerdy. So I mentioned, bartending as a launching my own brokerage. I was talking to Kyle about some feedback. We were on the phone a while ago. We recorded in Insurance Nerds. I looked it up. It was in July 14th, 2019, just after you guys Series B raise. I kind of combed through. I became a customer in August of 2019.
Thank you.
And of course, got a couple friends on, Clearcover, which now I'm paranoid I'm going to say Cover Wallet because I always flip the two. But no, man, it's been awesome. And today, maybe I'll get in trouble for this, but thinking of InsurTech and insurance as two different things. I want good paper. I want good tools. I want to put my clients with the tech that fits them. But I appreciate the clear covers, the hippos, the cover wallets that gave me access, trying to get going as an independent, trying to get going as a small guy. Like, you guys were the ones who opened the doors, and thank you for not taking yourselves too seriously and welcoming whoever wanted to come to the party to, try to get some business ridden.
Of course. Well, one, thanks for being a partner. Thanks for being a customer. I got a bunch of thanks to offer here, so appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I've luckily, knocked on wood, only needed the app once for roadside, and the guys were right there, super polite. The app worked out well. I think
Good.
last time we joked around about Broker Brett being in a ditch, like a Broker Brett button.
There is that like stuck in a ditch button in the app, which
Yeah.
is a fan favorite. So don't do it. You can see the button without actually getting stuck in a ditch, but people love that one.
Now what I think about it, dude, there's almost so many funny little like Easter egg things you could do, like weird random scenarios, but I don't know if you want to tempt people to use them,
Yeah, that's the thing. You stick them in there, you're gonna see somebody use them.
I had a friend with a Range Rover, and one of the toggles was like a cactus button. They're like, "Oh man, yeah, today's kicking ass." I was like, "What happened? You find a reason to use the cactus button? Is that what's going on?"
They don't give you an explanation, right? You just have to drive around and guess when that button is relevant.
Right? Yeah, I'm slipping on some sand here. No, but it's pretty cool, dude. And I'm sure since the Series B, since 2 years ago, everything's probably gone perfect. Everything's gone exactly as you wanted. I'm sure you had this like chart, and you're like, "We're just gonna go from here to here," because that's how startups work, right? It's
Exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, look, I think startup stories tend to just be ever extending post facto rationalizations of choices that you made in the past. So, like, whenever the story is being told, it's just some rationalization of all the mistakes that were made prior. We're no exception. Plenty of mistakes to go around.
being around Fineo, so I've been around bootstrap stuff, my own small business stuff. That was the first like venture-backed company I've been a part of. One of the guys told me the key to startups is being comfortable with ambiguity. And that was such a good that. And then when the other sales guy mentioned dignity wasn't invited to the party, that was another good rule of thumb when you're trying to,
Yeah.
climb. And I think the other thing is just the longevity, just being around to get lucky, because not every decision is going to be perfect. Not everything's going to fall your way, but just, I always think one of the keys is capitalize on the upside, limit the downside,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the like Y Combinatorisms was this notion that every startup is an equation, and the variables all have coefficients which represent like the weight of that particular variable in the startup success. And one of the variables is luck, and the coefficient for luck is like a random number between 0 and 10, right? So that it's like, it's a very true thing. I think you're right that sometimes, a good operating strategy is just figuring out how to stick around long enough for serendipity to kick in, or at least give yourself the opportunity to get lucky by just staying in the game long enough.
Yeah, I heard one time that Napoleon would only hire generals that consider themselves lucky because they'll just figure it out. And you've taken company much further. I would say I've had my own minor versions of success. One thing I always do is try to trust myself to kind of keep ruminating in the back of my mind. Like, you
Yeah.
don't have to have a decision or a path today, and there's no perfect path, but your brain's going to keep working on it. You'll find the answer, like if there's something you need to kind of suss through, so
Yeah, and I think theoretically you can increase your odds of getting lucky, not just by existing, but by being smart about your decision making processes. So like, I think Annie Duke wrote this great book, Thinking in Bets, and one of the key takeaways, I'm sure a lot of people read it on the pod, but one of the key takeaways from the book was this idea, you ask people the question, what's the best decision you've ever made? And 99% of the time, they're going to tell you the best outcome they ever got. And in reality, that doesn't really tell you much about the decision they made. They might have made a terrible decision and got a good outcome. So what you really have to distinguish is decision-making process from outcome, because they're not always connected. And like what I've found is you can create more space for luck to come in if you focus on decision-making process and not necessarily outcome. You just give yourself more opportunity to have good things happen to you if you focus on the input, not just the output.
No, it makes sense. I always joke that I'm like Paul Bunyan trying to learn how to wield a steam powered axe. Like I've been cold calling since I was 18, grew up around a bunch of cowboy salespeople, and I see the beauty of tech and what it can do. And they compare it to the printing press. The world's obviously different than it was. Industry should be different, but I think I learned those soft skills. Now I'm trying to adapt over, to the tech world and try to be the analog guy around the tech stuff and try to leverage the tech as much as I can. You know, I thought it was really cool and humble when you mentioned, needing to reach out to agents. I think multi-pronged approach. I think you need a few ways to win, and it's cool. I think that's going to help the D2C side with the agent influence. The agents are going to need some D2C kind of tools to really look modern, so I'm 36. My business partner Ed's 57. One of his sons said, "Hey, is there any way for people to purchase their own insurance on your website?" He's like, "You're missing the boat. If people, son's in his 20s, he's like, if people can't work on their own stuff, he's like, you're not going to get anybody my age,
Mm.
So it's cool that you're giving agents those tools too.
Yeah, yeah, I think like a lot of startups, we went through this initial phase of like, we have to do it ourselves. We have to be direct to consumer. Like
Mhm.
that's the way that like
That's how the world is
modern
viewed.
insurance companies distribute. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like a normal phase. But then I think we went through this pivot in terms of philosophy, which was that's just not, no offense to like our incumbent peers, that's not a very customer centric view of the world. Like to say I'm an agent carrier, an independent agent carrier, or a direct carrier is like a very internally centric view of what you are. And to the
They don't care.
customer doesn't, they don't care. Like
Yeah.
I can tell you our belief system in terms of what customers care about, like the inputs to a good customer experience, are really simple. There's only four of them: transparency, convenience, low prices, and superior value.
Hmm.
That's it, right? And there's hundreds of things you could do to deliver transparency, convenience, low prices, and superior value. But you had better deliver those things, or you're not going to be able to get or keep many customers. And so at the end of the day, like, where does channel fit into that? Like,
Yeah.
right? Like, I don't know. Like, it's convenient for some people to use one. It's convenient for some people to use another. Like, the channel was not a very customer centric distinction, and so we just moved away from it. We said, look, well, we're gonna try and work in every place where the customer feels like they want to engage with insurance, and we can use technology as like a core pillar of the business
Hmm.
to be able to work across all of these channels without having to spend an arm and a leg to do it and sacrifice this low price pillar that we also
Hmm.
care about. So anyways, yeah, it was just a realization, I think, that customer centricity demands channel flexibility, even though that's not how most carriers tend to think about the world.
And I don't think, I mean, it was 5 years ago, 4 years ago when I was getting insurance, just listening to podcasts every day, trying to catch up. And there was the evil insurtech coming. Um, the customer doesn't care, but back in the day, like I can't fault you guys for the D2C versus the IA channel, because it felt like there were two different things. But it seemed like at some point, 3, 4 years ago, there was this light bulb moment of, oh, these things can be helpful too. And I do think people moved away from the tech crunch disrupt sort of mentality. um and it had to be noisy at the beginning to make change, because when you're small, you kind of have to be loud, I think. But once, you know things just kind of got out there, I don't know, it seemed to mellow out. I think it's for the better for all of us. And a friend the other day does a lot of specialty, she works in a niche, mentioned personal lines. I was like, well, reach out to the guys at was it First Connect. I was like, they'll get you Hippo, they'll get you Clearcover. Like, you're not living in that. Go grab these things. They're easy to use. They're going to take fine care of your customer. That's what you need to do. I think we'll be doing a lot more cross selling as agents too. You'll have your niche, but when people are coming to you, you're going to have a lot better grasp on the customer. If I'm going to biasly put Fineo out there, if you use Fineo to sell life insurance to somebody who already have their personal lines, it's going to be
Yeah.
that much stickier. I think we're going to do a lot more cross selling through InsurTech too.
Yeah, I mean, look, your game is no different than ours, which is again, transparency, convenience, low prices, superior value. Like we're playing the same, the customer wants the same things. You can fast forward 10 years, they're going to want the same things. Like that's, Jeff Bezos likes to talk
Yeah.
about the interesting thing to look at is what's not going to change in 10 years versus what is going to change in 10 years. And like it's those four things. And you're in that game and we're in that game. And everybody who wants to stay in insurance needs to be in that game. And so yeah, look, I agree. I think you're talking about, well, look, here's like a highly leveraged way to get access to personal lines, because how can you offer a convenient experience for your customers if they need some insurance from you, you don't have it. And like,
Yeah.
so again, it all comes back to like these four inputs we think are going to deliver us a better customer experience over the span of time. We're just all finding our own ways to deliver them.
Mm-hmm. And something I kind of came across lately is just the idea that as a broker, I'm taking insurance speak to the consumer and I'm translating it. And then I'm taking the insured sort of realities, I'm translating to insurance paperwork. All we are is a middleman for this thing that's like kind of amorphic, and I think keeps the wheels turning, no pun intended, you know. It's fun though. And but yeah, dude, no, I appreciate you guys opening the doors early. If you don't mind, not to put you on the spot, how many states are you guys in now? I know it's a strong rollout.
16 now
Cool.
and growing fast. We're adding a bunch more. So yeah, that's been a process. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy for a reason, right? Like
Yeah.
launching a state is kind of a big deal. So we get it. But yeah, we're excited. We were, this time last year we were probably in 4 states,
Okay.
something
Excellent.
like
Yeah.
that. So and we'll finish the year north of 20. We'll finish next year, maybe double that. So state footprint's growing really fast, which is good. It helps us
Yeah.
work with people like you. When the more states we can be in, the more, more partnerships we can build, the more
Hmm.
customers we can help. So that's a big lever for the business, is getting access to markets.
Oh yeah. And there's such a balancing act. I, got myself licensed everywhere, got FINEO licensed everywhere, but it's a lot smaller level when it's just sort of agency license. It's simpler. I would say the vast majority of them, 80%, pretty straightforward. Maybe 5 of the 50 can be really weeded, but it's an interesting process. The states are such a weird animal, how it's like almost like 50 different little test kitchens,
Mm-hmm.
and no, that's really cool. And I think you guys are right to, I think you're moving at a nice medium pace, I'll say, like biting off states, but also not going too crazy, not, I'll say intelligently expanding, it sounds like.
I
So,
mean, you look, you've been in the industry a while. Your listeners have been in the industry a while. Like, I think it's pretty well known that growing too fast is probably more dangerous than
mhm,
growing too slow in our business. So you
mhm.
have to be aware of that thing in the market. And like, you obviously want to grow fast because investors like that and you can raise money and that's an exciting thing to do as a startup, but you just have to do it responsibly, because again, like growing too fast in this type of market is deadly.
Oh, 100%. And you don't want to just, buy markets, whatever else. Like, I don't know. I think about writing good business. A buddy Ed would say, not all risk is good risk, and I know you guys are intentional about who you bring on the books. We've quoted with you a good amount. I think it seems like you're building a nice book, like not a lot of fluff in there. But yeah, it's such a long tail game and it's such a weird one of like, you're not selling a client today. It's not like a toaster, you're like selling a relationship of trust and like being there when it's needed, it's such an interesting sale. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating business. I love the business. We love the business. It's
Hmm.
like it's this very like labyrinthian puzzle. There's all these different angles that you need to get into and solve. But like, if I abstract away the names and I just talk about the characteristics of the business, most people are going to run 100 miles per hour in the other direction. Like you would say, okay, here's the business I want you to get into.
Yeah.
So the customer generally dislikes your product, and it costs like $1,000 a year, and your cost of goods sold is basically unknown for a very long period of time, and it's also highly variable. So it could be wildly profitable or wildly unprofitable. And like, a lot of people are going to look at that business and be like,
You're running
no
a
thanks,
casino?
right? Like, yeah, like, no,
Yeah.
I'm good. Like, SaaS business, like 80% gross margins, pretty predictable. Like, cool. So it is like, it's a fascinating business, but it also has a ton of unique challenges. It's not an easy business to be in
Hmm.
by any means, which I think is good. I mean, that's like, that in and of itself is a barrier to entry, is that these are just hard businesses to run. These are really
Yeah.
complex things to work.
I think I've been licensed, I want to say for 7 years, but before I came into insurance full time, I was like, these guys are sleepy. I don't even know who these dudes are. Like, I'm going to run circles around them. I'm going to go sell left and right. I had no clue. I had no clue how thick the relationships were. I had no clue how little people want to move their personal lines. Like, it's so funny on the commercial side how much you can get beat by like sandwiches. My best friend's machine shop, 200-person machine shop, $60 million a year revenue. Their freaking agent brings in lunch once a month. I'm not touching that account. It is so weird.
Yeah.
Like it's the thing.
Yep.
I got respect for it now. Yeah, I sold office moves before. I was very competitive, focused on downtown LA. I sold copiers. I did fine. I've been a proficient salesman. Insurance, the labyrinth is a perfect word to say it, whether it's the sales side, the industry side. Like it's not an easy road, but it's interesting and worthwhile. And not to, fanboy it too much, but I don't know what else I'd work on at this point. Like I'm stuck. My wife actually says I can't work on anything else. I tried to help my brother's cooler startup out of Colorado, Rover Products. I'll plug them. She's like, nope, if it's not insurance, you can't do it. Just get me in my, she's
Good
wise, man.
focus, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm going to add sandwiches to my superior value
Oh,
list here.
dude,
So
you need to. The carbs, man. I
this,
used
you see the announcement of Clearcover rolling out sandwiches with every policy, you know where
You
it's coming from.
should. Dude, carbs make people happy. Not to go on too much of a tangent, there's a 3-location Cuban bakery called Porto's in LA. Like phenomenal. But they had a location between our office and this industrial area, kind of north Orange County, South LA County. I would just literally just go grab boxes of them, drop them off at property managers' offices. That was my bag. And I'm knock on wood, hopefully going to find my hack for insurance, but property managers and project managers bring them carbs. Carbs
Bring
make
them
people
carbs.
happy. Yeah. So, but yeah, dude, insurance is a tough game. I've sold a lot of things, worked in restaurants, hospitality, whatever else. It's a uniquely slow, serious animal that's everywhere. So it's also like minorly like frustrating as an agent because you're like, I know they have insurance. I know they have insurance. I know that thing has insurance. Why can't they have my insurance? You're out there kind of grinding, try to take over.
Yeah, no question.
That's fine. What made you choose auto insurance? Sorry, not to go back in the time machine
Uh,
too much.
I mean, it was a controversial decision, that's for sure. Um, we, not to get too long-winded, but like, I think when we chose it, a lot of people looked at us sideways because it's a super, as you know, super competitive market, like ton of incumbents spending a ridiculous amount of money every year competing for eyeballs and market share. So, people thought, well, that's like, why would you enter that market? What makes you possibly think you can win? So there's really two things. One is we did think we could win. We still thought like there was enough ways to deliver on the inputs of transparency, convenience, low prices, superior value that we could actually create something that was like uniquely valuable to customers. So we thought we could win, which was item number one. And item number two is if we talked about this before, that in insurance, it's a constant balancing act of growth and profit, right? And your job is like to find customers out of a pool of customers who you think you can acquire for a price that makes sense with respect to how much margin you'll make from that customer over time. But it's unclear. You have to predict that. So you're playing this like predictive game of acquisition cost versus lifetime margin from the customer, and it's hard. But you also need to grow fast as a startup. So
Mm-hmm.
essentially, what we said is it's a selection game, and so in order to make sure we have we can select well, we can pick customers that we think are
Mm-hmm.
going to deliver that right balance, but we can also grab a bunch of them. We want the largest pool possible.
Mm-hmm.
So it's another way of talking about like people say like big markets are good. Sure, big markets are good, but why? This is the why behind why a big
Yeah.
market is good, is because this is a game of choosing carefully which customers you want to add to the book. And the bigger pool you have to select from, the more likely it is you're going to be able to pick good matches
Good
and
point.
also grow quickly. If you pick a small market, you may be able to pick good matches, but there's fewer of them to choose, which means over time it's going to be harder to grow fast.
No, it's a great point. It's funny. It's almost like you separate the world pre and post pandemic, but pre-pandemic, I made the argument for greater LA because I could, 13, some ridiculous number, I'll say $1 trillion market in Southern California. Within 2 hours, I can touch most of it. And yeah, I've always done in-person sales. part of what kept me down here. I almost ended up at an inside sales role at LinkedIn of all funny things. So I'm still trying to make my other decision a good bet. You know, that's the other thing. You kind of have to exert your will a little bit, whether you're a salesman, I think, or a founder. You kind of have to like force your decisions to be good decisions.
Yeah.
Ed, who I'm working with, he ran like a 6 location, 20-person agency focused on marine, but he never done sales. I was like, there's something weird about being a sales guy where you feel like you get to put your hands on the universe a little bit, and it's no longer like yay or nay, A, B. It's like, okay, what can we do? Things seem somewhat
Mm-hmm.
propositional. And it seems like founders have that on steroids. It seems like you guys look at problems and you're like, why not? And I'll drag it through the mud till we get there. you know, like,
Yeah, I mean, yes, we're certainly in the sales business, right? Because
yeah,
you're always selling something,
yeah,
whether it's a vision of the company to investors, your product to customers, your company to employees. Like you are certainly in the sales business, and it does take like a bit of grit and resilience because you just get told no a lot from every possible angle.
hmm
So like you need that too. But the other side of that coin that I think people tend to miss is you also have to like orient yourself to the world around you really rapidly and be willing to change your mind. And in fact, this is like the most important. This is actually much more important than grit or resilience or persistence. It's being able to rapidly orient yourself to what's going on around you and then change direction if required. And that's I think the thing that ends up a lot of gritty people out there in the world. There's a lot of people who are willing to push through pain. I think the people who are end up being successful running startups, and we haven't gotten there yet, but we hope to at some point, are the people who are actually willing to change their worldview, who are willing to like learn to observe what's going on, orient themselves to what's going on, and change what they believe or their
yeah.
direction quicker than others.
So it's interesting. I attribute a lot of what I have to soft skills I learned. I was a youth pastor for 3 years. I look at some leadership components that probably came out of that. Um, I graduated college 2011. I was actually looking at nursing as a really good traditional job. I liked the idea of law school, but wasn't the strongest student. I know you went through law school. When I told my dad I decided to get into sales, he's like, son, salesmen make the most money in the world. And I think he's right. Like, I think he was happy about that. But I think in a way, kind of inheriting his lens of how things were successful and what had worked. When I talk to some of these just genius startup people who reach out, I am humbled that some people find me on like brokerbrett.com or like top of the top, but they came here from other countries and they just have that fresh perspective. They're like, what works today? What's the best
Mm-hmm.
job today? Where's the opportunity today? And I'm kind of realizing, as somebody who's third generation, half Mexican, Southern California, I got to kind of like drop what had worked, and I got to kind of look at the playing field as it is now,
Yeah.
and I enjoy doing that around insurance. It's a lot of fun. But I think, yeah, seeing things as they are today and not lying to yourself is huge.
There's like one of the Amazon leadership principles is this idea that leaders are frequently right, which makes sense. But I think that the part that people tend to miss is the people who are most frequently right, counterintuitively, are also the people who are most frequently wrong, because they're Bayesian updaters. They're willing to take in their surroundings and like change their opinion to fit the world around them. So like I think same as a startup, right? Like you have to be willing to be wrong in order to be right frequently. Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck wrong for a long time and you won't have the opportunity to be right.
To me, what's been helpful, and I don't feel like I should preach about anything, but is the idea of adding perspectives rather than looking for a yes or a no. I'm always just looking for people who can round out how I'm seeing things, add new layers. Like, I know how I view stuff, and I think you can learn something from just about anybody, so it's sort of getting your perspective by hanging out for half an hour on this, bugging some other people. It's just cool, see how different people are playing the game.
Yeah.
Um, that's good stuff, man. No, but I appreciate you doing this again, and just thrilled for you guys. And it's fun to see like where you were, where you're going. I look forward to doing this in 2 years and be like, hey, that's cool. We'll have to do this again when you lock up that 50th state. We'll be like, all right, we were here, we're here, the capstone. But it's good stuff, dude. I look forward to being a customer the whole time. I feel good, getting out there for my buddies. And thanks for changing how we're viewing this stuff and open up the IA channel too.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks for being a partner, a customer. Thanks for
Yeah,
doing this. Happy to be part of it.
for sure, brother. Well, we'll catch you guys soon. Thanks for watching.
All right.